perfect time of day, and I weeded out this back part of the alleyway, and I laid out a layer of compost, set up some soaker hoses, and it's time to plant out our beans, corn, and squash, otherwise known as the Three Sisters. Alright, as we've seen in previous episode, I believe I showed in the garden pests episode, the sunflowers that were getting really eaten up by various bugs and slugs and snails. But sunflowers are a very strong plant and can usually get themselves up in growth to kind of push back on all of the damage being done to them. So we have a nice little patch here in the back alleyway of some sunflowers that actually are all volunteers. They came up out of sunflowers that I planted from seed last season. There should be some pretty strong plants climbing up above the fence line here. Alright, so like I said, we put in soaker hoses coming down the way here. And what we plan on doing is, in large groups, we're coming down the way here, all the way down up to where the sunflowers are. We're going to set out corn, and in between each of those bunches of corn, we'll set out a squash plant, maybe even a cucumber or something like that as well too, in between a couple of them as well. So, as in a previous episode where I showed chitting, potatoes, and also peas, this time I've got some garden beans that we'll be planting out here, out in the alley there. And we also have some corn as well that I basically just a day or two before I plant it, do the same thing. Just kind of get them wet, get the little roots started up. So we'll be planting out these sweet corns. We have one for the community garden, one for the gardens here out in the alleyways, and we've got some pole beans that I'll be planting out with both of these varieties at both gardens. We also have some squash and cucumbers, and there's a couple of melons in there as well that we'll be planting out. Put the squash and the cucumbers. With the corn though, I got a different spot for those cantaloupes. And a little stevia. Buddy boy, what you doing? Yeah? What's going on, Carl? Huh? You just chilling, buddy? Yeah? Alright, so what we're going to start with is a squash plant that we're going to put right here. I've got a butternut squash that we're going to grow. We're going to plant that right in. I guess out a nice little hole. Nice spot for us right there. Now with squash plants, if you're seeding and growing these yourself, you want to plant them just only maybe a couple of weeks before you transplant them. They don't take to transplanting very well. They don't like having their roots bound up. So one of the best bets is to get them before their roots really start hitting the bottom or starting to get in and around there. So I think we should be pretty good with this root system that we have here on this squash plant. Get this in. It is grown only so much, so we don't need to bury it very deep. Now in the area right next to it though, like I said, we're going to plant out a bunch of our corn. So I'm just going to basically place in several holes. I think we'll do it bunches of should be pretty set with a nice bunch like that right there. Grab a few of our corn seed and drop them right in there. I did let the tails of these grow out a little bit too long, so I'm going to try to pick out the shorter ones, the ones that basically just come right out of the seed. Try to make sure that the root end goes down, plant end comes facing up. So in those spots there, we've got buried those in. So what I'm going to do is around the outside, and maybe one or two spots right around the middle. We're going to plant in some of our bean seeds. Just going to plant those all in. We basically got our corn and our beans planted in. They've been chitted and sprouted already, so they should be coming up in just a couple of days. Now, one of the things that's going to have to be done here, because I'm growing out in the alleyways, is I'm going to have to be very vigilant when it comes to the slugs and the other bugs that are going to try to attack these new plants as they come up out of the ground. So hopefully we have planted out enough and they are strong enough coming out that they will survive whatever type of attacks come along. Alright, so now I'm going to go and get the rest of these planted out. as well as the back alleyway where we planted out our three sisters. We're also going to finish out the rest of the corn seed that I have, and we're going to plant it out here in our other alley, in-ground planting space in between where we have our elephant garlic and our other garlic, which we should be harvesting real soon here in another couple of weeks in an upcoming episode, so keep an eye out for that. So I'm going to get down here, we're going to plant out the rest of that corn seed, and then we'll head off to the community garden. As you can see, what I did is we had this leaf mulch that was laid out from last fall's leaf fall that I had left out all winter long, basically to break down into this area and compost down. There's still plenty of the leaf mulch left. I pulled it forward, planted out our corn, so as the corn comes up, when it gets up a couple of inches or so, which should just be a week or so from now, they should come up a couple of inches, I'll move that leaf mulch back in and around the plants, and then this front end will be opened up, and at that time we'll be able to plant out our onion starts. We got our corn all planted out, we got our three sisters in the back alley, we got our corn in the back here all settled in. We're going to take a moment now, head off to the community garden, see what's growing on there. All right, now we're down at the community garden. I've got a few things watered in, did a little bit of light weeding, and now I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna plant out what will be our bean patch at the end of this first plot here. But first, let's take a look around, check out how some of the things are going. We've got some good stuff going, and we have some things that aren't going too well at all. All right, so down at the far end of our first plot, we do have a couple of squash plants here. We've got our butternut squash and a zucchini squash. We got those growing there, and they seem to be doing pretty well. They took their transplant all right. We'll just see how they get going here a little bit later on and how they produce fruit. And we also got some watermelons that seem to be kind of taking their time getting started. I'm sure hoping that as the season gets going on that they will get growing on. We got a cantaloupe there. And I believe we've got a watermelon there. Another watermelon there. So we got a few watermelons, and then we got this dark zucchini squash, which is doing really well. It's really taken to its spot in the garden. And we've got a crookneck squash right here. It also seems to be doing pretty well. But I did purchase this watermelon here, and it just, I don't know, it doesn't seem to be doing well. The leaves are really curled up. I'm not sure if that's just it going through plant shock or what, It does seem to be putting on new growth, so I still got hope that it's going to be just fine. Looks like we got another sunflower trying to make its way into the garden. Parsley's taken off just fine over here. And over onto this side, all of our greens and everything that we put in are growing really, really well. Broccoli's doing really well there and there. Cabbage and mustard greens, Swiss chard, arugula, kales. We got this Asian green, some spinaches. First one's doing really well, second one's having a little bit of a problem, and that one is just really tagging along right behind. Those all seem to be doing really well there. Our tomato plants that we planted in really starting to stand up really well. So they're starting to get their roots established in there really nicely. Starting to put on some new growth. And our leeks, I put on bulbs. So we'll be looking forward to some leek seed coming up pretty soon. But our onions, all of their flower tops have seemed to have come out really well here in the last few days. Still got one that's trying to produce a bulb. And this sunflower has just really come up in just the last couple of days. He's taken off. This one ought to produce a really nice sunflower for us at the end of the season. And our lemon cucumber, starting to get up there, trying to get up to that first ring. Snapdragon. And a couple of pots opening up. That one's looking really nice. And our oregano that we chopped back all the way to the ground is looking like it's going to need another cut back here real soon. And here's where we planted out our peas. As you can tell, they've come up very well. They're looking really nice, and we're going to have to take some peas home with us today. And our onions, ones that are still bulbing up really well in there. A couple of them there. We will be pulling these guys out here real soon as we harvest the flowers for seed. Now where we are right now is the area that I'm going to set up. We're going to move some of this compost soil that I've got here. I'm going to put it around in some of the other parts of the garden, and we'll plant out our beans that I brought in for the garden today and set up our bean patch. Alright, and over here, our curled parsley, part of it isn't doing too well, but it's trying to keep going. We've got some other parsleys that are trying as well. And the basils, they're trying. They are real still young yet, but they're not doing as well as I had hoped. Chives are settling in really well there, and our little patch of garlic chives. So I hope that they get taken off pretty soon. But our cilantro, not done very well at all. It just basically darted right up to seed, and it's basically not very useful at all. So we'll pull that out and we'll replace that with something else. We've got our beans pretty intensely planted out here in rows. Hopefully we'll get a lot of good viable plants to come up, and we'll thin them out a bit if they are too crowded later on. Okay, so that we'll be looking forward to these sprouting up here pretty soon, and when they get up maybe 6 inches or more, I'm gonna try to set up a kind of a fencing type of thing going across the top that they can grow up through and into, to kind of give them some stabilization as they grow up taller. I grew beans in another part of the garden last year, and I grew them similar to this, but I didn't have anything holding them up, and all they did was fall over and lay over all over the place and stuff, so it didn't really work out. This time I'm going to try to take care of that, and we'll put in some sort of fencing there. So we'll look forward to that project later on. Now here at the community garden, we do have a watering system that we put in, and it's got a timer and a filter and everything. It runs our drip through our plots here, but it's set up by the city, so it only runs for a certain time of the day. So me, in the time it took, a little too late in order to get this finished up, ended up having to utilize what you should always have a backup plan. So I set up a bucket of water here at the end of my plot, just in case I have to come in and water during a time that the watering system is not running. All right, so we got everything planted out. In our back alleyway, we put our Three Sisters squash, beans, and corn out. We got that all taken care of. Here at the community gardens, we've got our bean patch all planted out. So we're all set there. We've got a lot of great things going on. Everything's looking really well in our gardens. So hopefully here in the next couple of weeks, we'll have some real nice plants and things to look forward to coming up. If you can, give this video a thumbs up. If you have any suggestions or anything at all, hit me up in the comment section below. And thank you for subscribing. We'll see you next time on another episode of The Urban Gardener. Gotta wait for the dog.